Comrades and friends, welcome to the program Global Weekly News, serial number 141. I am in Kolkata now. I have been attending UITBB, International Trade Union of Building and Woodworkers and Building Materials Union Federation, Asia Pacific meeting and Executive Committee meeting. So on 8th and 9th, that meeting was held. Due to that, there is a delay of presenting this Global Weekly News by a day. Sorry for the delay. Anyway, let us proceed with the Global Weekly News, serial number 141. First item, migration is not a crime. Protests in USA. Students and workers mobilized in cities across the US on 3rd March to mark a day in protest of US President Trump's ongoing crackdown on immigrants. Trump is attempting to deport between 1.5 to 2 crore immigrants. His administration has run into significant difficulties in this mission due to the limited capacity of immigration and customs enforcement detention facilities. Even without a court hearing, expedited removal of immigrants is taking place. Those who are deported, those people include people who cross the border unlawfully or enter the country legally but did not apply for asylum, or who presented themselves at US ports of entry but lacked documents. Activists in the immigrant rights movement, including socialist presidential and vice presidential candidates, had been publicizing the call to not work, go shopping, or attend school in solidarity with the immigrant communities. Immigrants are significant contributors to the economy and social life of the United States. Migration is not a crime. No human being is illegal. Second item, comrades, Europe and Ukraine peace talks. European leaders, together with the NATO chief Mark Rutte and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, met in London on 2nd March to discuss further militarization and support for Ukrainian President Zelensky's administration following his humiliation at the hands of US President and Vice President. Since January, new US administration began to make relations bitter towards its Atlantic allies. In the meeting, politicians struggled to reconcile statements of unwavering support for Ukraine with the reality that they are not prepared to cut ties with the US. From their reactions, it seems certain that peace for Ukraine is not a priority for them, but remaining in Trump's good books is a priority. As Italy's far-right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni pointed out, for the European political establishment, it is very, very important that we avoid the risk of the West splitting. Contradictions between European leaders came out. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer floated the idea of a coalition of the willing to send troops to Ukraine for peacekeeping, while French officials suggested securing a 1-month truce to determine whether Russian President Vladimir Putin is acting in good faith. The success of virtually all ideas floated at the summit would depend on US support. The alternative peace agreement would even be presented to the US administration for approval. In fact, US support would be among the 3 key factors supporting its implementation, in addition to European troops being deployed to Ukraine and continued arms shipments to the country. There is a widespread belief among European leaders that war is the only way to prevent war. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen declared that the path to peace is strength. Weakness breeds more war. We will support Ukraine while undertaking a surge to European defense. Lindsay, leader of the Stop the War coalition of Germany, told that working class people have nothing to gain from militarism and war. Jeremy Corbyn, the left independent MP of the United Kingdom, criticized the meeting that the London meeting is a summit of emptiness. All this just to reaffirm the alliance with Trump, talk endlessly about the European pillar of NATO and so on. Europeans are finally discovering how the United States has been treating Latin America and its leaders for a century. Third item, comrades, hundreds demonstrate against US war games in Korea. Hundreds of activists mobilized throughout the US in opposition to the expansion of the Freedom Shield military exercises, joint war games conducted annually between the US and the Republic of Korea, this is South Korea, in protests organized by the United States Out of Korea campaign, spearheaded by anti-imperialist Korean diaspora. Activists called for the end of US military aggression of all forms against the Korean people. On 1st March, hundreds of thousands of people in South Korea mobilized against President Yoon Suk-yeol and Freedom Shield military exercises. Demonstrations took place in 4 US cities: New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles and Seattle. Protesters used chants such as "No boots on the ground," "No bombs in the air," "US out of everywhere," and held signs with slogans including "No to Asian NATO," "Stop the war machine," and "End the war games." In New York, over 100 activists rallied outside the UN headquarters. Hundreds also gathered at the Campoche Women Memorial in San Francisco, dedicated to women who were sexually enslaved by the Japanese army during World War II. 150 demonstrators took part in Los Angeles demonstration. In Seattle, activists staged a vigil outside the Republic of Korea consulate. Fourth item, comrades, China responds to Trump's tariff war. China announced 10 to 15% additional tariffs on agricultural and food products imported from the US on 4th March in retaliation to the United States imposing a 20% tariff on all imports from China. China also put 25 US firms on exports and investment restrictions on 4th March. Some of these companies are supplying arms to Taiwan. China's additional tariffs will be effective starting 10th March. On 4th March, the Donald Trump administration announced an additional 10% tariff on all Chinese imports effective on 4th March. The new tariff is in addition to the 10% tariff imposed on 4th February. The move was announced along with 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada over their alleged failures to control the flow of fentanyl, that is a drug, and related chemicals into the US. China had announced a 15% tariff on coal and natural gas imports from the United States in retaliation to the imposition of 10% tariffs in February by USA. China has maintained that the issue of fentanyl, the liquor, the drug, is a pretext to wage a trade war and a tariff war against the country, harming not only the mutual prospects of development but also the stability of the global economy. It asked the United States to withdraw the arbitrary and unilateral tariff and resolve the outstanding issues through negotiations on an equal footing. Unilateral tariffs violate rules of the World Trade Organization. Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesperson stated that the claims of United States about China's failure to control the flow of fentanyl into North America is just a pretext to launch the tariff war. He emphasized that China already has a rigorous anti-drug policy in place. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson said that the remarks of U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accusing China of trying to flood the U.S. with fentanyl reflects a Cold War mentality that seeks containment, suppression and blame shifting. Fifth item, comrades, Trump 2.0. The view from China. Donald Trump's second term may not be all bad for all nations, especially China. Trump has earned the popular nickname "Make China Great." Trump's first term made at least 3 notable contributions to China's rise. First, Trump's presidency shattered the image of the U.S. as a cradle of democracy for many Chinese, revealing political chaos and deep societal divisions in the United States. For decades, some Chinese idealized the U.S. as a beautiful country. However, Trump's actions provided what some describe as a political lesson, reshaping perceptions and fostering greater appreciation for China's stability and governance. The first contribution I told, now the second contribution. Trump helped accelerate China's push towards technological independence. More than 20 years ago, the Chinese government began promoting innovation in science and technology. By 2024, China had achieved significant advance in technical independence, including breakthrough in semiconductor manufacturing. There was record high chip exports in 2024, which surpassed $15,900 crore. The third contribution of Trump for China's growth. Third, Trump's trade war with China had driven a rapid restructuring of global trade, leading more Chinese to recognize that the world is far larger. Like the Belt and Road Initiative, China deepened its relations with the global South nations. Between 2018 and 2024, trade with these nations grew by over 40%, while China's reliance on the U.S. for trade fell from 17% to 11%. The combined experience of Trump's first term and Joe Biden's policies to contain China over 8 years has strengthened China in the medium term. From a long-term perspective, China has gained a strategic psychological advantage in dealing with Trump 2.0. China won't actively provoke Trump 2.0, but if aggressive U.S. policies like trade wars or technology restrictions persist, China will respond with calculated countermeasures and ultimately becoming even stronger. On 7th January 2025, both China and the U.S. experienced natural disasters. A 6.8 Richter earthquake struck Dingri County in Tibet, while a major wildfire broke out in Los Angeles in USA. In Tibet, Chinese authorities swiftly relocated 50,000 residents within a day. Meanwhile, the wildfire in Los Angeles continued for over 10 days, worsened by political infighting and mismanagement. These contrasting responses underscore the weaknesses in U.S. crisis management and governance. Trump-style neo-fascism is provoking panic in Europe and Canada. Questions now openly discussed are: will Denmark lose Greenland? Will NATO lose U.S. military support? Will Canada become the 51st state of U.S.? Non-Western observers know fully well that Trump will not prevent China's long-term trade growth even with 60% tariffs. He cannot curb China's continued rise. Trump 2.0 will likely continue withdrawing from international agreements, including climate accords and the World Trade Organization. The result, Trump 2.0 could push the US into regional power status. Embracing isolationism. China has the ability to turn challenges into opportunities. By 2028, the Chinese will be more confident than ever in saying, "Thank you, Trump." Our sixth item, comrades, French neo-colonialism is the main cause of Benin's underdevelopment. Benin is an African country. French neo-colonialism is the main cause of underdevelopment in Benin and much of West Africa. Two motorcycle taxi riders in the 30s, along with so many others, were arrested after a demonstration on 15th January in Benin, demanding the expulsion of French troops from the country. They were released in February. There was a terror attack on 8th January on one of the strongest of its army's installations by an Al-Qaeda affiliate, killing over 30 soldiers. The Benin's left and pro-sovereignty activists allege a French collusion with the terror groups to perpetuate such attacks, which provide a rationale for the deployment of French forces in West Africa. Seventh item, comrades, a new flag for Sahel Alliance. More and more multilateralism is coming to action. In September 2023, the Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger formed the Sahel Alliance. The alliance has prioritized breaking away from long-standing colonial era ties and creating a self-sufficient regional entity. In addition to unveiling a new flag, the three Sahelian nations has introduced measures aimed at deepening integration. They launched a Sahel-wide passport system and established a joint military force to deepen military coordination in order to combat Al-Qaeda and ISIS affiliated groups. The decision to exit ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, announced in January 2024, was framed as a necessary move to counter its failure to respect their sovereignty. In recent years, ECOWAS imposed sanctions and restrictions on Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso in response to popular military takeovers in each country. However, the Sahel Alliance argues that ECOWAS policies are dictated by Western interests, particularly France, which has historically maintained economic and military control over West African nations. Following their departure from ECOWAS, the Sahel Alliance has also outlined plans to establish a single currency, further consolidating economic independence. In Burkina Faso, the government has removed British and French-style judicial writs traditionally worn by judges, making a break from colonial judicial norms. Across these three nations, colonial-era monuments and street names are being replaced with symbols that reflect indigenous heritage and anti-colonial resistance. French troops were expelled from Mali in 2022 and later from Burkina Faso and Niger. The alliance bold moves have drawn popular support as many on the continent hail them as a necessary assertion of sovereignty and a model for other African nations. Now Sahel Alliance stands as a model for all the other African nations. Eighth item, comrades, we go to Greece, where mass mobilizations is sweeping. Mass mobilizations continue in Greece as workers, students and the public demand justice for the 57 people killed in Tempe train crash 2 years ago. Following unprecedented protests on 28th February and 5th March, trade unions have called for more rallies on 7th March, coinciding with a no-confidence vote against the Prime Minister and his New Democracy cabinet in Parliament. Reacting on the mobilizations, the All Workers Militant Front, PAME, reaffirmed the commitment to fighting neoliberal policies that are causing daily catastrophes like comparable to Tempe accident. Government's poor track record on the matter and the fact that outsourcing maintenance to a foreign company is allegedly part of the government's proposal. These promises have done little to soothe public outrage. To bring down the public outrage. Side by side with PAME, the Communist Party of Greece and other left-wing organizations, demonstrators are calling for a complete overhaul of the system to achieve real justice. The party said that the real priority should be to channelize public anger into building an entirely new socialist system. Lastly, comrade, in memory of Hugo Chavez, on 5th March, we remember the legendary Venezuelan revolutionary leader Hugo Chavez, the leaders of the Bolivarian Revolution in Venezuela. He changed the course of history to reawaken the dream of a united Latin America and the Caribbean, and he inspired the entire global South in his defiance of US imperialism and defense of the oppressed. Chavez was born on 28th July 1954. He died on 5th March 2013. He was President of Venezuela from 1999 to 2013 till this death. Last salam, comrades. See you next week. Thank you.